to tell you about the baddie of Beauvais, Jeanne Hatchette. Just kidding. Forgive me if I look at my notes, but let's get started. When Jeanne was 16, she was confronted with the siege of her hometown Beauvais in 1472. Charles the Bold, aka Charles the Rash, was a Duke of Burgundy. He was one of the wealthiest, most powerful men in all of Europe. He was giddy about war, ornery as hell, and his greatest adversary was the French king, Louis XI. So, what did Dukey Charles do? He gathered other rebellious French noblemen into his very own army in order to fight the king. Of course, Rash Chaz was always trying to place himself above others. His entire motivation was to put himself equal to or more powerful than the king because zit-Allah, he is rich and he deserves it. Okay, forgive that accent. What he wanted to do was unite his lands that were separated by the king's lands. Charles assumed that his reputation alone would cause the people of Beauvais to surrender, quaking in their boots, as he had severely punished each and every town he had overtaken along the way. He knew that Beauvais was well fortified, but that they didn't really have any weaponry to contend with his army. Now, Beauvais did have a handful of archers whom had sought refuge there after previous battles in nearby towns, but that was nothing compared to the Duke. The Duke had 100 lancers and 300 archers at the ready. There weren't enough ladders for the Burgundy army to overtake the walls of Beauvais, but Duke Chucky had a cannon with 2 shots, and he used those to bust right through that front gate. The people of Beauvais fought with whatever was available to them. Rocks, boiling water, lit torches, and they threw them at the Burgundy soldiers attempting to scale the wall and break through the gate. After 2 weeks of holding off the siege, the Beauvais people were exhausted, and they felt as if dying fighting was their decided fate. They were out of food. They'd seen so many of their fellow townspeople brutally killed. And the town was said to look like, quote, hell itself as it burned from the damage done by Charles's army. Their hope was diminishing. As the Burgundian army entered the town, an officer attempted to plant the Burgundy flag on the Beauvais wall. When Jeanne saw this, she thought, oh, hell no! She grabbed her hatchet from Daddy's butcher shop and began running toward the officer. The officer holding the flag had already assumed that Burgundy had won the battle, and he placed the flag on the walls of Beauvais. He did not know what to do. Part